Let's go live with Jack Kelly. Welcome to the one-of-a-kind LinkedIn live show that will help you with your job search and advancing your career. We will bring in educated career experts who will share their insights and give you inside tips on how to be successful in your job search. Now let's get into today's show with your host, Jack Kelly.
All right, wait. It shows like we're on. That's too easy. Wait a minute. Usually there's a lag. Does that always say, like, I say, okay, yeah, we're on.
Excellent.
We're on. We are live with Ed Hahn. Let's go live with Jack Kelly and our special, amazing, awesome, terrific guest, Ed Hahn. Welcome.
Thanks very much. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me, Jack.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. So, maybe you could just introduce everybody to, who you are.
Sure.
And I think everybody on LinkedIn knows who you are already, but that's okay. So you could reintroduce yourself.
Absolutely. So, hey, everybody. Thanks for checking us out. My name's Ed Hahn. I have been a recruiter for the last 8 years and change. I have also been known in the local job search groups in my area, in central New Jersey, where I have presented at a number of groups. Breakfast Club, for example, is one place where actually Jack and I first met some years back. I'm very excited to be here.
Well, thanks, Ed. And I got to tell you, LinkedIn, where I think compared to other platforms, it's generally a nicer tone, a more polite tone. But you got to be the nicest guy on LinkedIn. Now, all right, tell it just between us. Are you really a nice guy, or is that just shtick? You're coming across as a nice guy. Come on, what's the deal? We won't tell anyone else. Whoever's listening will know, but no one else will know.
Sure.
What's the real deal?
It's funny, right? I mean, one of the great things about social media is that you respond when you want to. So, sure, I have interaction with people that don't go in the way that I might like, but the thing I can always remember, right, is that at the end of the day, when I choose to respond shapes how I respond, right? So on some level, yeah, sure. I have the opportunity to be more thoughtful about the way I respond to something. So maybe that has the effect of making me seem nicer than I am. I don't know. But the truth is, I try very hard to live my life according to a very simple principle. Is what I'm doing increasing the amount of good in the world? Yes, great. I'm doing things the way I want to be. No, then I really need to rethink what it is I'm doing, rethink what it is I think I want to say, So maybe I seem nicer than I really am. I don't know.
Well, it's interesting. Oftentimes, I think with social media, it pushes you to react.
Mm-hmm.
And doesn't help matters when people, I think, purposely try to kind of stir the pot and get your adrenaline going. And I appreciate what you say, because I try to do that. Oftentimes I'm unsuccessful at it. Is that, you have this gap where someone says something or does something and how you're going to react to it and how you process it. And it is a battle to be able to step back and not fall for it and not get sucked into something.
Sure.
And then to, and then to position yourself where you could kind of respond in a nice way. And I think that's good advice, that for people who might have a knee-jerk reaction, to follow your lead and say, hey, you know what, I don't have to respond right away. I don't have to do something. I could kind of wait, think it through, calm down, and then kind of give an answer or say what I want to say in a measured way, which doesn't cause, an argument.
Right. And, when you come right down to it, right, my presence on LinkedIn is, I am trying to come from a place of being helpful, right? Yeah. And is my response helpful? I mean, the fact is, when you try to help people, sometimes what you say isn't right. Sometimes that happens, right? No one bats 1,000. So what do? You own it. You say, you know what, that was not ideal, and this is what this is a better response, right? Again, trying to live in alignment with that principle. And that's really what it comes down to. Years ago, I used to work for a very large investment bank. And when we were all onboarded, because I was onboarded with a bunch of other folks at that time, I will never forget what the HR rep said. You work for a very large bank that has a global footprint and has global name recognition. If you are out and about, just remember that the things that you do or say run the risk of appearing on the front page of the New York Times. It makes sure, if you're going to do that, this is a way that reflects well on the organization, you know, and that has stayed with me ever since then.
Yeah.
That really, I try to let that form the way I try to interact with people, you know. Yeah, there's you can get engagement, you can get people reacting by saying things in a provocatory manner, right? And yeah, sure, that can be helpful, in that sometimes these conversations need to take place. But generally speaking, a lot of times, I think those interactions can go south, can attract a response that you don't want, you know. And how is that helpful then?
Yeah. Fast forward today from when you were at the investment bank, you have to even be more cautious now.
Sure.
Because not only the reputation of the company, but you could run the risk of saying something that could just get you booted off a platform, get you fired. It's kind of a different world now where you have to be really careful on what you say, how you say it. It has pros and cons to it. You know, in some ways it's good because you don't want people saying really horrible stuff, obviously.
Of course.
But then you don't want people to censor themselves because then you really don't know what they're thinking or doing. I'd rather hear what someone's really, who really believes, so I know where they stand, as opposed to like, you know, what's this person really thinking?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, that is part of the challenge, right, with social media and the perennial push for immediacy.
Yeah.
Right. You know, the desire to respond immediately is understandable. I mean, it's what we do. I mean, we've spent our entire lives, you know, in terms of our communication and how we interact with people, with this desire to respond immediately. But immediacy is not always the most important thing to respond to, the most important driver.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've come to the point, Ed, where I do this, particularly with when I write for Forbes.
Right.
You can get, no matter what topic, and I don't write about politics, I write more about the intersection of careers and what's happening in the business world.
Yep.
But invariably, people politicize or take, you know, stands wherever. I don't even engage anymore. So like, if someone could say horrible, especially like on Twitter, you know, like really horrible, you know, just killing me. I'm like, I'm not gonna be goaded. I'm not gonna get involved. And in part also because of what you mentioned, because I didn't have that conversation with an HR person, but I just assume that's, as I'm representing the brand as writing the piece, I don't want to be the guy saying, F you, you know, like that's not cool. That's because I wouldn't want someone on my company doing that to someone else.
Exactly.
So I figured, you know what, I'll just take it. I'll take it. And you know, it's just not worth it. It's just not worth arguing and fighting because it hurts my brand. No matter what, like you get in the mud, you're going to get dirty. It just I walk away. That's it. At first I would seethe a little bit. Now it's just, I laugh. I'm like, whatever, you know, some stranger has no idea who I am, what I'm about. And instead of really just maybe politely asking, hey, you know what? I don't get this.
Right.
They would ask me like, hey, can you know, just give me some color on it? I'd be glad. Oh, okay, here's what it is. And I'd be happy. But if they're just like, you're such an idiot, you're a moron, you're whatever. It's like, all right, why am I going to engage? There's nothing to win by it.
Exactly. I mean, where's the ROI on this?
Yeah,
right?
Nothing. It's just only loss.
Exactly.
But you do the opposite. Every day you have, how do you come up with this? Every day you have a tip of the day. Like, do you plan it like way in advance, or every day you got to stress out like, oh my God, I got to come up with a tip. I'm running dry. How does it work?
So, it's a funny question, Jack.
Yeah.
I've been doing this now for around a decade or so, something like that.
Really? That long?
That
Wow.
long. And the funny thing, here's a really funny thing, right?
Yeah.
Like my tip for the day is something I started doing when obviously the LinkedIn platform was less mature than it is now,
Yeah.
right? And was less feature rich than it is now. You may recall back in the day, Jack, that when a LinkedIn member posted a status update, it could only be 120 characters. That's what it was. And that was very deliberate, right? Because at that time there was a push, by LinkedIn to integrate LinkedIn members' Twitter feeds
I don't
into the
remember.
platform.
Yeah. Is that?
That's why it's that length.
Huh. Okay.
That's what it dates back to. So 2 years ago, when LinkedIn expanded the size of the status update to 220 characters, no, when Twitter expanded to 220 characters, right? And LinkedIn had already expanded the status update to like 500 or something like that. It gives me a lot more room, of course,
Yeah.
to expound on these things. But I've largely stayed within the Twitter defined space constraints, which of course is funny now, right? Because I post these things on Twitter as well. In fact, that's where I started doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, I just do both of them at the same time. In terms of coming up with stuff, it's driven quite honestly by conversations I have with other people, whether they be other recruiters, whether internal or external, with other LinkedIn members. I participate in a couple of conversations with power users of LinkedIn, right? Or just day to day my own observations about what people do on the platform. I mean, there have been a number of times where someone does something, I'm like, okay, yeah, this is a teachable moment here, and so that drives a lot of stuff. Like today's, for example, something about there are precious few instances in which an accepted invitation to connect is an invitation to pitch me, right? Right, and Jack, you run a business, so people are pitching you all day long, every day.
And I pitch people too, so I can't complain too much. I'd be
but you know what I mean. You know what I mean? Someone who's never scoped out, who you are, what you're about, what you do, and they come at you with this proposition, and it's completely unrelated.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? Like, why is this happening?
Right. Ed, so I understand you want to buy stuff in Ukraine, and right? It's like, wait, what? I mean, nothing. It's just so off the mark, right? It's
exactly.
And you wonder, why are they doing this stuff? Like, they can't be successful. I don't understand. Or are they? Or it's a numbers game? I don't know.
Well, the way it seems to me often, Jack, I think the analogy is spammers, right? I mean, they do it because there's that 2% or whoever.
I don't know. Like, give you an example, like the phones. You probably get this too, about the warranties, right? The warranties, credit card, mortgage, all the time. And like, who is responding to a robot talking about your warranty?
Right.
I don't get it. Like, even if you do 1 million of them, I can't even think one person say, "Oh my God, my warranty. Sure, let's talk." Or is it? Maybe. I don't know.
The ROI clearly has to be there. Otherwise, this would not have proliferated in the way that it has and continues to.
Yeah. So you speak to a lot of recruiters, and you're a recruiter yourself.
Yeah.
What do one thing I'd like to explore with you is this. There's kind of, I think, a misconception about recruiters, both external recruiters and in-house recruiters.
Sure.
And you've been both, right? You've been on both sides. Can you maybe kind of walk a little bit about what to expect? So if you're listening and watch us now, or you're going to watch us when we, we put it up on social media again, oftentimes I hear that people get really frustrated.
Sure.
Because they really don't know the relationship. They have certain expectations. So maybe you can kind of walk through people like, hey, this is really the insight
the inside story. So Ed right now is an internal HR, recruiter working at a company. I'm an external recruiter. So we have, kind of that fingers on the pulse, but I think if you could kind of walk them through like how it is in your life, what you look for, what's good, what's not good, the do's, the don'ts, all that kind of good stuff.
Absolutely. Happy to do that, Jack. And yeah, this is definitely a source of confusion and frustration a lot, So yeah, as you say, I've done both internal and external recruiting. I started out doing internally. I wound up doing external for a couple of years, came back to internal. I'll be honest, I do feel happier doing this, but I think that where folks get into trouble in interacting with recruiters is understanding who it is that we're trying to make happy, right? So when you work external, who are you trying to make happy? You're trying to make the hiring manager, the client happy.
Mm-hmm.
The client says, I want X with these doodads and gizmos, so to speak. And you say, okay, great. I'm going to go try to find X with doodads and gizmos, just like you told me. In fact, I want to exceed that doodads and gizmos because I know that if you told me you want this, I want to over deliver.
Right.
Right. And if your sense is doodads and gizmos like are being described aren't there or aren't in budget that the client has communicated to you, you push back. Say, hey, listen, I don't know that what you want is necessarily there. At least not within the budget you're talking about. We need to rethink this, right? Because you want to be delivering what the client is asking, but you also want them to be educated. You don't want a PMP certified PM who's only getting paid like $50 an hour. Mm-hmm. That's not a thing that makes sense. If you can find that person, what have you found, really? Right? I mean, by contrast, if the client says, "Oh, you know what? I can give you a pay rate for this person of like 120, 130, 140." You're like, "Okay, great. What other things do you want for this person?" Right? And that becomes really fun. Because then you get to educate the client about, hey, listen, your budget will buy you much more talent than you seem to think. I mean, I know this is rare, but it's a great opportunity when you get it, right? And similarly on the internal side, there's a lot of education as well. Hey, the budget is X. You say you want this other thing. One of these things is not like the other here, hiring manager. We need to talk about this. Right. And again, it's about being a trusted advisor. It's about making sure that the hiring manager is the person that's going to be happy with the end result. Now, of course, in either case, we also want the talent to be happy, right? Because if they're not happy, I mean, sure, maybe they'll start the role, but after a while, if this is not a match, it turns into a backfill. So no one's happy then. The talent's not happy. We're not happy. The hiring manager isn't happy. And then we have to go back and try to find someone else to do it. And then that's also an opportunity for us to go back to the hiring manager and say, hey, listen, the expectations and what I can find for you are not necessarily 100% aligned. And I think we just saw evidence of this. So, I think we need to recalibrate. Let's do that. Let's have a conversation about how we do that. But it's critical to understand that the recruiter in either instance is more like a broker to my way of thinking. We try to find the right talent. We try to make sure that the hiring manager has a reasonable expectation before we present people. So in that way, that it's matchmaking, right?
Now, I don't want to put you on the spot with your company specifically, sure, but just generally in your, 8+ years of experience, do you find if you go to the market and the hiring manager gave you a list of criteria and then you realize for the comp, it's just not happening and you give that feedback, do people generally accept it or they push back on you and say, well, too bad, this is our budget, this is what we have to do?
It's kind of case specific.
Yeah.
To be honest, so for example, um, there's a rec I was working on last year where the comp was off by a meaningful amount,
Mhm.
right? Uh, and so I had to listen to what the marketplace was telling me, you know, and finally had to go back to the manager and say, listen, marketplace is telling me that we're off by a substantial amount, and I think we really need to talk. Uh, I think that you and I need to talk, and I think I need to talk with the folks over at the compensation part arm of HR, and recalibrate what we're doing,
Yeah.
you know, in terms of what our expectations are, in terms of what we think is reasonable to pay folks. You know, I mean, in an enterprise, you benchmark that stuff, right? So if the marketplace tells you differently, you need to go back and you have a bit of a process involved.
So to unpack it, and you brought up a whole lot of different points altogether, so that it's one part of a recruiter, whether you're working at a search firm or you're working in house, is to be a broker, to be a matchmaker, and your responsibility is you got to keep everybody happy. You got to keep the company happy and the job seeker happy, because you need the two of them to agree to make it work.
Yep.
And it's a process. And what I think you're saying, Ed, is that, a lot of times there could be a misalignment in terms of, the company feels, oh, we could get these people for this amount of money and this should be easy. And then, Ed, you might go out and look and say, and I would go out and look like, no, we can't, this doesn't work. It's too much of a gap. If you want all these 10 ingredients, you got to pay such and such.
Sure.
If you don't, you're not going to get it. And there's this it's like a dance. It's a back and forth.
Yeah.
And these are some of the things too, where I think it leads, part of the whole thing, which leads to frustration from candidates. Because I wonder if you go through this, that you may share something with a candidate, right? Let's say you're calling me up and say, Jack, yeah, great job for you, I want to hear it. And then you tell me the comp, and then I'm indignant. I'm going to say, well, how dare you, Ed? I'm making, this, and you're giving half. I can't believe it. And then I go online and I say, Ed is a terrible person because he's trying to lowball me. And it's not that you're doing it. It's just like, okay, you were given this to work on.
Right.
And you know what? You may or may not know what the market is until you start speaking to people.
Exactly.
Right. Sometimes you have to, like I find out, like I have to speak to 5, 10, whatever people to get a feel. What's the real deal? What's the real marketplace? Because, you speak to, let's say, 6 people. Okay. You can't know for sure that's what people are earning, but you at least have a decent feel. This is what they're doing. And then you always have to take away like people lying. So then you cut it. So whatever they say, I always cut it a little bit, but it's a back and forth. So like you are, or I wouldn't be come across as being purposely rude or someone about a comp. It's just, okay, this is what they're giving us to work on.
Right.
And if we're really not sure what you're earning, we're not saying it to,
right.
lowball. It's just, we don't know. And this is what we find out. Then we could get that information and bring it back. So it's much more complex, I think, than people say. Another thing, too, I noticed, too, Ed, is that, tell me if you find this out as well, is that I think oftentimes people look for recruiters to feel, okay, you get me a job. But that's not the case. Like if they go to you, you're not going to go looking for a job. You have your jobs that are open, right?
Exactly.
I mean, do you see that a lot? Where?
Oh my gosh, yes, all the time, almost every day, Jack. Almost every day.
What do they just like? So is they call you, they email, text? What do people do?
Oh, they'll call or email or invite me to connect on LinkedIn.
Right.
And hey, that's great. I'm certain that's part of why I maintain a presence, because I want to hear from folks.
Right.
But someone put up this great question on LinkedIn yesterday. I think it was. Yeah, I think it was yesterday. A friend of mine put up a question saying, hey, listen, how do you people who work in the hiring or the career coaching space respond to these 2 very different messages? And the first question was, hey, take a look at my qualifications, here's my resume, please let me know if there are any opportunities in your organization where I might be a fit, right? And that's a very, very common ask, a very, very common phenomenon.
So it's like you're getting a homework assignment.
Essentially. Right?
They're asking you to do their homework for you, right?
But the second So the compare contrast was, hey, I am getting my resume professionally written, and I want to make sure, and I'm looking at this specific opportunity from your organization, and I want to make sure that I'm fine tuning it.
That's good. I like that.
Right?
That's better. That's a good move. You know what? I haven't heard someone say it, but I like that. That's
right.
That's a good approach.
Exactly. Now, and so the analogy that I have for this, right, is, you know how like when you go out, well, okay, granted not in 2020, but like in prior years, right? You go out to the store, right? Whether that's your Wegmans, your Whole Foods, wherever you're shopping, you run to an old friend you haven't seen in years. Hey, it's great to see you again. Hey, we should get together and hang out. Yeah, we should definitely do that. Okay, I'll give you a call. And you go separate ways. Yeah. And what happens?
Nothing.
Exactly. Not a thing, right? And so if you never take that action, if you never do the follow, there's never any follow through, nothing happens.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's what the former case is, right? Where if you're messaging to recruiters, hey, here's my resume, let me know if there are opportunities you're working on where this makes sense. And look, I get it. It's really hard to do a custom contact to people. Mm-hmm. I know it's hard. It's a right pain. I get that. But at the same time, there's a reason that people don't just cold call everyone in their network, right? Because they typically want to have a higher than average odds of getting the result they want. So on some level, this is really about optimizing your time usage.
Yeah, because I don't. So it sounds like people will hit you up quite often, basically saying, "Hey Ed, here's my resume. What do you have for me?"
Right.
As opposed to the other part, what you mentioned, instead of saying, "Wait, I see this job. I think I'm great for it. Here's my resume. Here, can you take a look?" So it's much more targeted. You're really investing your time wisely because you're finding it. Because if you're asking you to do it, they may not think at the time, and they're probably not purposely being rude, but they're just thinking, oh, okay, Ed's the HR recruiting guy, and he should know all this. Whereas you're thinking, hey, I have how many recs at a time? You could have 10, 20, 30 recs at a time.
I think I'm currently working on 27, I think it is.
So how can so like you're juggling so much. It's like you want to tell the person, hey dude, can you just make my life easier? You know what I mean? I'll be glad if you find the job on our site and then do as much work on your end as possible and then give it to me and then maybe we could do it. Just help me to help you, kind of thing, right?
Well, yeah, but you're right. I mean, there's a, I don't want to call it ignorance, because that has a negative connotation.
Because they're not thinking. They're just assuming, okay, that's your job. That's what you're supposed to do. They don't have a basis for it, but they just presume. And how can you blame? Because they don't really know exactly what you do. So they're thinking, oh, that's his job. Hey, I'm interested in your company. You're representing the company. Do my homework for me. Go take a look and see which job is right.
Well, like I said, I get this a lot.
Yeah.
And I'll admit in my when I'm not hewing closer to my purpose and values, it frustrates me a little, right?
Yeah.
However, I also remember very keenly that, especially right now, because the job market isn't great still, I mean, we're seeing some signs of life, and I'm happy about that. Right. But it's certainly not like it was in 2019.
Oh, we're still about 10 million jobs down.
Exactly.
Where last year this time, yeah.
Exactly, and however many shops have had to close or riff or just furlough. I mean, it's really, really challenging, and there's a lot of anxiety and a lot of concern, and that makes everything even harder.
Yes.
Right. So I try really hard to remember that, shut up, dummy. You have a job. You like your job. You love the people you work with. Be grateful and appreciate it and be present. Right.
It's a good attitude. That's a really good attitude to have.
I remember the Great Recession, right? That was a pretty awful time for a lot of folks, myself included, to be frank.
Yeah, but I can understand your conundrum is that you're up early in the morning, you're working. We all have our issues that we're dealing with in the pandemic. Sick relatives. They run the
Exactly.
gamut, and you're juggling 27 different jobs. Yeah, and then it's like, you're only human. So after a while, it's like, it's very easy to be, even though you're empathetic and sympathetic, to be like, oh my gosh, come on, help me to help you. Like in that vein too, do you see this too, Ed, where you have people who have 20, 30, 40 years of experience,
Mhm.
and maybe they were a manager at different companies, and they're a terrific person.
Right.
But because they have that, they feel that they could be good for any of the jobs you have.
Uh-huh.
Try to bully you into like, hey, but I'm good for this, I'm good for this, I'm good for this. And if you kind of give some pushback or advice, then they get mad at you and you're the bad guy. Does that happen?
Yeah, of course. I think that happens to every recruiter, to be frank.
Yeah.
It's sort of like I think that's just the market being a recruiter along with your first bail, right? Or I still remember mine. Oof, never gonna forget that one. I think that it's challenging, understanding how do I process this stuff? How do I engage in this in a thoughtful way?
Mhm.
And that's really it. It really is, I think, about being present, about being thoughtful about the things that we do, about the decisions we make, right? Um, because so much of where communication goes awry is when we're not fully present.
Yeah.
When we're not really paying attention. Like any of the really bad interactions I've had with another person since adulthood, anyway, have really been founded on or exacerbated by my flying off the handle and not being present. Because that's when you say the things that you can never take back.
Right.
You know, um,
It's easy to happen, especially
it
in a
is
pandemic with all the stress and anxiety and
exactly.
everybody on edge. It's amazing how it doesn't happen even more than it is already.
Yeah, it's really quite extraordinary. Like one of the things I'd really like to try to pride myself on is trying to be high touch. Now, I don't always get there, frankly. I don't think that there are a lot of recruiters who can say they consistently 100% get there, right? But it's always, mathematically speaking, it's an asymptote. We're always trying to get there. We may not necessarily reach it, but it's still a worthwhile goal in its own right. But that's also part of why my work email signature has my mobile number in it, so that candidates can get hold of me. Now, every candidate I work with knows full well that I'm working remote, but my mobile number is in there, and they know that I'm good for voice and text. So they have the tool to keep me accountable if they want. Um, and sometimes it doesn't always happen. There's a lot going on. I get that. If you're a job seeker, however, how many dozen of jobs did you apply for today, right? Are you going to remember mine? Probably not. And that's fine. I get that. And you know what? If you're really good talent, you're going to encounter a lot of opportunities. But going back to the heart of what you were saying, right? When you have these really experienced senior talent saying, "Listen, I've got these qualifications, and I should be able to find a role." Like I was hiring for this director position, and it was a bear. This was a bear of a wreck to work. The problem is that we were positioning it as a particular kind of director position. So like all manner of people with like 5, 10, 15 years of experience as directors at really great brands were telling us, "Hey, I'm very interested in this role," and I had to tell them, almost all of them. Like there's like an earlier iteration of the gig where we had like 100 applicants, and even once you factor out the ones who were just applying to everything on the website, because you always have that. Even when you factor that out, there was still like 50% of the talent that was interested. If it was any other kind of director, oh yeah, I'm talking to these people. But because of one or two very specific things, they were clearly not the right person. And at the end of the day, there were out of let's call it 150 people who submitted their resumes, there were five who legitimately qualified to do the job that was being described. And we said, this is what the job is. And a lot of people, I guess, didn't really quite pay enough attention. So, it's a very unpleasant conversation to have with someone who had their successes.
So what do you say to someone like that? Where, let's say I send the resume in and I really feel I'm perfect for it for a variety of reasons. Do you have kind of a go-to to?
So, yeah, it's not a fun conversation,
No,
right?
it's not.
No, it's not. And we are talking about really highly qualified people who have stacks and stacks of star stories, who have their really impressive save the day moment story, right? Yeah. And those are terrific people. And then I draw their attention to the 2 or 3 things in the rec where we specifically say, hey, listen, we really need someone who does this, and that is, from my intake with the hiring manager, the essential thing. Like almost everything else in the JD actually didn't really matter. They needed these 2 or 3 things, and of course,
and that's so important in this market now. I've noticed, right, where I think what you say is that with a lot of companies in the past, and tell me if you've seen this too. In the past, it was much more of a open to generalization. If there's a rec with 10 different points, maybe if you had 3, but you're really terrific, they give you a shot. Now it seems what you're describing, you have this director role, and could those people do it? I imagine if you had no choice, a lot of these smart ones maybe can, but your hiring manager wants somebody to find someone who really owns all those things and is very specialized, and you need to have it. And it's rough because I think most people feel like I go through this all the time, Ed, where there are people who I know, I feel in my heart, they're smart, they're motivated, they're entrepreneur minded, and you can give them like 9 out of 10 jobs. They can figure it out, but they don't get the chance because they don't have the exact background. And to me, as a recruiter, it's so frustrating because I kind of know, you're right, Ed, you can do this job, but I also know they're not going to give you the shot. And then also I know, and this is kind of one of these quirky things, let's say a recruiter like myself who works, at a search firm, is that they're going to say, hey, Jack, hey, we're paying you a nice fee for it. I don't care. Get the person we want. And if you can't do it, I'm going to go to somebody else. So there is sometimes, I think, I'm curious of how you feel about it. Sometimes I think there's a higher barrier when you're dealing with an outside recruiter because you're paying that fee. So you're thinking, just like anything in life, if you're paying for it, you want to get something for value. So they're thinking, no, Jack, too bad. Keep looking, keep trying, and the poor candidate is like, but I know I could do it. And I'm like, I know you could do it. But this is and it just gets really frustrating for everybody.
Yeah. And Jack, I think this really comes down to an old jingle, to an old commercial, right? You can have it your way.
Yeah.
Right. So, one of the really interesting things that I think I've witnessed in the last 2 decades, so certainly well in advance of my becoming a recruiter, has been an increasing trend in corporate America towards rewarding specialization.
Yes, absolutely.
And so as we see the rise of increasingly specialized skill sets, right? I mean, we've spoken before about how not only are there project managers and IT project managers, but there's even project managers who specialize in data center migration, right? Which to me is a bizarre thing, but that's where we are. This is the world that we're in, and of course that's going to go away once everyone starts to go moving on from on-prem to cloud in some fashion, right? I mean, those projects are all taking place right now, if they haven't already completed.
Do you think because of that, as an outgrowth, is why we have such long-term unemployment? It's like, I want to say I could be wrong about the numbers, but it's at least 30% of the unemployed, if not like 4 million people, are long-term 27 weeks unemployed.
Right.
And do you think it's part because it is now an era where these companies, for the most part, want specialized talent? If you don't have it, you're kind of sitting on the sidelines. Do you think that's a thing?
I absolutely do think that's the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, each organization has developed what they really want, right? I mean, doing what you do, that when you are working with a new client, that you need to understand what is it they actually are looking for. What
Yes.
does this mean? What does this job title mean in your organization, right? I like to joke. I used to have years ago. I used to have the job title of operations manager. It's the single most meaningless job title in the world because you manage the operations of the organization. Well, how many organizations are identical,
Hmm.
right? I mean, size, industry,
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
how you do things, right? I mean, it's all different. So, so in similar fashion, um, it's it absolutely is a case of where I think each organization's drive towards specialization has also had the impact of meaning that employees who are successful at becoming part of that solution, fitting into that very specific puzzle spot. Well, you've built puzzles. Does this puzzle does this puzzle piece fit anywhere else? No, no, it does not. And I think that is indeed what we're seeing with the 27 plus week LTU, which is a darn shame.
What do you think they could do, Ed? Is it try to pivot, reinvent themselves, go back to school, go to gig economy? Any thoughts for?
So I think there's a couple options, right? Number one, um, obviously the gig economy is going to have to be the immediate response,
Mhm.
right? I mean, if you have bills coming in, you need something fast. So the gig economy is really going to be the best way to get that to happen. So consulting or contracting or any of these or freelancing or any of these other various forms of that solution, sure, absolutely. Reskilling where necessary. You know, there are folks who work in challenging who work in industries or professions that are seeing considerable upheaval because of advances in technology, right? Um, you know, there are in IT, there's tons and tons of people do manual testing of software, but the push in that space for the last 5 years has been towards automation. If you don't have automation experience, you're left behind. What do? You know, it's very, very challenging. Um, so some level of reinvention is the only other alternative, is the way I see it, to be frank.
Yeah, and it's not easy though, right? Because especially if, and to add on to it, I think I don't have the data at hand, but I would guess a lot of the people who are the long-term unemployed are of a certain age, let's say 45, 55, and it's harder, you know what I mean, to kind of make a pivot when you're used to a certain salary, a certain title, a certain amount of prestige along with your job to kind of start all over, right?
Oh, absolutely true, Greg, Jack. And the thing is, um, a career pivot or career reinvention, or whatever other term people are now using for this phenomenon. I mean, this is stuff that I did to become a recruiter.
Mm-hmm.
And now I was very fortunate in that I was able to do those things. I was able to weather that initial difficulty in order to make this transition. But I did. But this is not, as you say, uh, a solution that everyone can avail themselves of, right? I mean, your bills don't care,
Yeah.
that you're finding different and new purpose in this path, right?
You can't put that back in the envelope saying, hey, I'm pursuing a new purpose, send it back and say, I'm good. I don't have to pay.
Shockingly, Experian and Equifax don't seem to be that amenable to that.
It's so unfair. It's so wrong.
Yeah. And I'm not sure what the solution is, other than beyond what we already talked about here, frankly. But it is. I think that this is a trend that is only increasing.
Mm-hmm.
As you know yourself, as a veteran in external recruiting, there's been a mushrooming of contingent recs versus direct hire recs in the last 15, 20 years, give or take.
Wait, when you say contingent, meaning what? Like not full
Staff
time?
log, staff log,
Yeah.
yeah, project based, exactly.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Ed, I've seen combination of contract roles, short term, midterm kind of contract roles. I've also seen relocating jobs to lower cost areas, both here in the U.S. and to other countries,
Yep.
cutting out mid management level to save a whole lot of money.
Yep.
Specialization, as we talked about, which you have to have this certain kind of skill set, otherwise, thank you, but no thank you. Definitely a lot of trends that really don't help, the average person. It makes it harder. I mean, some people benefit because if, let's say, they move a job to, to Florida, yeah, all right. So some of the younger people now you're going to get that job down there, but the person who's 45 up here in New York is going to lose out. So yeah, it's a weird, scary time, out there for a lot of people.
I agree. And here's the really funky part, right? I mean, a lot of shops since March last of 2020, they are experiencing what it means to have a wholly or largely wholly remote workforce. And obviously, not every shop has the same experience, but I think that for the most part, some of the shops that perhaps were not open to remote work are discovering, what, my fears were unfounded or largely unfounded. For the most part, I think that's been the reaction. So what happens now when companies decide, what, let's bone up on labor and payroll laws in all 50, and then let's start hiring people in a lower cost of living area, right?
That's a big trend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's going to happen. I'm sure it's begun to happen in some places. I mean, if you're a FANG shop with that really super expensive real estate where you're currently located, I'm pretty sure you can pay a whole lot less for someone who is quite probably equally talented, or at least very nearly equally talented, living in, say, Wyoming, where I'm pretty sure the cost of living is quite a bit more manageable.
It's interesting. Yeah, there's, I feel you see a lot of ageism out there in the job market, but part of it, I think, is not just because someone's a certain chronological age, but as I think you're kind of alluding to, they're making let's say on Wall Street, because that's where I place that. So maybe you're making 250,000 plus a bonus and you're in New York, but now maybe you're working at home. Then they start thinking, do I need Jack Kelly or Ed Hahn and pay him 250 plus bonus plus everything else when I could go find somebody, like you said, Wyoming, North Dakota, Florida, Iowa, wherever, where you could probably pay a fraction of it. Yeah. So it's maybe a little the age, but also it's because of the age. You've been working for so long, you've got to that level and you're earning a certain amount of money, and everybody's tightened their belts lately. So it makes it convenient to say, sorry, Ed, sorry, Jack, we're going to go with somebody else.
Right. And I mean, however shops choose to do that, right? And there's any number of places that are cheaper than New York or New Jersey, of course, right? There's a couple that are more so, like the entirety of Hawaii, San Francisco, the Bay Area, of course. You get the idea. Excuse me. But yeah, there's absolutely no logical reason, especially when there are good programs at schools that are located in some of these less developed areas, less populous areas, right? I mean, or for crying out loud, like Carnegie Mellon, right? One of the greatest CS programs we have in this country. They're out in Pittsburgh. There's not a whole lot going on immediately outside of the city of Pittsburgh, though. So it's probably a lot more affordable. And guess what? There's a locus of talent right there, right? And I'm sure there are shops that have aligned their physical presence accordingly. Other shops are going to probably wind up doing the same.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting how this all plays out once the dust settles. How about and I didn't mean to kind of get us in a place where like there's where people are saying, oh my God, guys, you're depressing me with this but I think part of it is I think part of what we have to do is just be transparent, you know what I mean, and share what it is, because I don't think we help people if you just say, don't worry, everything's great. You know, everything's fine. Yeah, go get them. I think there's merit to just giving, hey, this is what we see. This is what's out there. And it doesn't mean you should give up your search. It doesn't mean you should be disappointed about it. But it's just, okay, now, all right. And I think this also helps when you hear from other folks go, oh, I thought it was just me that is happening to. You know what I mean? I thought, oh man, I thought it was just I have a black cloud over my head. Maybe somebody is like sabotaging me. Maybe my past coworkers and bosses didn't like me, and now they're putting in bad words. So I think also it might be liberating when they go, oh, all right, this is why maybe it's a challenge, because I didn't realize how specific these jobs have become. I didn't realize that they're moving into lower cost cities and states and out of this country. I didn't realize that, maybe I didn't come across the right way when I'm sending out my, when I'm dealing with the, HR, recruiters and so on. So I think there's value too, to like, okay, these are things I got to be aware of. And now I understand it. Right. But speaking of that on a positive note too, like for people who are trying to contact you, and maybe, and I'll use you to represent all internal corporate recruiters.
Oh, this is going to go great.
What are some of the what would you like to see from people? So if they're sending over a resume, they're getting in touch, like what's like the coolest, nicest protocol that'll catch your attention and say, I like this person.
Okay. Honestly, the best way, frankly, is invite me to connect and send me a note, and send me a note that says something like, Ed, you were talking complete nonsense when you were on LinkedIn Live with Jack Kelly. No, seriously though, send a note. Tell me what specifically can I do to help you in your search? What specifically is the assistance that you're looking for from me as a recruiter, as someone who has presented to job search groups a number of times over the years? What specifically is there that I might be able to do today to help you? Come at me with something specific. Come at me with details. Details are why we finally do reconnect with that friend we haven't seen when we run into him in the store, right? Have that follow through.
Right.
So many times I'll get invitation to connect with no note, so I have no idea why people want to
buy.
And it's very confusing when they do not have a skill set that I recruit for, which is something I talk about on my profile, what things I do or do not recruit for. I talk about the fact that I will recruit for my current employer, which, by the way, is not an external recruiting firm, which, just clicking on that little link on my profile would tell you, so give me something specific, and I can give you something meaningful and useful. Because if you want to have a conversation with me, well, great. I'm certainly happy to do so, but I want to make sure it's useful to you.
Mm-hmm. That makes so much sense, because this way, at least either A, wow, I could really use your background, your experience, because we do either A, have a job already, or I know we get these jobs in my company, so I'll keep my eyes open. Or, sorry, Jack, your background is really, it's in a whole different space than what I recruit over here. If I hear of anything, I'll let you know. You know what I mean? At least you can give a good answer to somebody one way or the other. Yeah.
I am really sensitive to the fact that there's obviously a phenomenon of recruiters ghosting candidates. Mm-hmm. And it's gotten to the point where now talent's ghosting recruiters too. Mm-hmm. And this is obviously, neither of these things are a great state of affairs, and it's unfortunate. But could we just have a conversation, folks? Mm-hmm. Is that are things so dire? Are things so heated now that we can't do that?
So I take it that happens to you internally as an internal recruiter. You still get ghosted.
Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah.
It's not just recruiters like me on the outside that can't go, see, this is what I mean by, like, you like to hear this so you can put things in perspective. So you're like, oh, okay, it's not just me. It's everybody.
Come on, getting ghosted by talent. I mean, especially for talent that I specifically hunted down and said, "Oh, you are like the person." You know,
Yeah.
so I've crafted my custom tailored
Yeah.
packaging so that actually shows. Heck, my email template says blow their minds. Hey, I really did read your profile. That's what the subject says.
Yeah. It used to be, Ed, I would get this. Let's go back a few years. I'd get the call like Sunday, like, I don't know, Sunday morning at 4 in. Oh, hey, Jack, I'm sorry I didn't get you. But yeah, I got a counter off. I'm going to stay where I am. So it's like, oh, all right. But at least then it wasn't a ghost. They would say, you know, I don't want to hear that message. It ruined the rest of my weekend. But at least they kind of gave a notice, or they'll send an email, you know, at 7 p.m. Oh, I guess you're not in the office now, but yeah, I decided I'm not going to take the offer. Now it's that what used to happen. Now it's you just nothing, right? Just disappeared, ghosted.
Well, no lie. My last bail, right, when I was before my last gig in agency, I had to bail the night before his start date, right? It was insane. It was absolutely insane. Me and my recruiting manager were trying to talk this guy down off the ledge. It was like 5:30 or 6 p.m. the night before, and we just were not successful.
Yeah,
and that was a rotten night.
It's you know how many times I've heard this. Hey, sorry, Jack, but I have to do what's right for myself and my family, and blah 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 blah. I'm like, ugh. But I get it, because if you got a better offer, something like that, but it stinks here. But then you heard, but that back then you would hear those things. They would tell you, they would say it, and it'd be really awkward, uncomfortable conversations on both sides. And then as a recruiter, I tried to sell them to kind of keep going forward with it, and they're trying to sell me on like, nope, I don't want to do it anymore. But at least you had that. At least you had a respectful back and forth conversation, and that would now like nothing.
See, what's funny is that I don't know. Maybe I make this harder than I have to. But if a candidate backs off and it's about the comp, I just let it go. Like, okay, so what's the delta? What does it take, right? Now you want to renegotiate. Okay, fine. I'm not jazzed on it, but what are we really talking about here? If it's a relatively minor amount, if it's an amount I think I can get, sign off on, I'll actually take that to the hiring manager. Say, listen, how to change a heart. And of course, there's always the inevitable sigh from the hiring manager, right?
Yeah.
But listen, if I think the talent is right, and I think that this is look, no one takes a job to get paid less than they could. No one does that. Okay, that's a lie. I had that happen once in the 8 years I've been doing this thing. And that was a very unique case, but ultimately it comes down to numbers. Everyone can rationalize a number. They cannot, however, offset, well, it's very easy for them to offset rather, oh, I have a great boss, or I have a great environment and team, but I'll get paid more.
Yeah. Hey, I don't mean to put you on the spot with this question, and it doesn't have to be your company, right? Just generally. Inside baseball kind of stuff here.
Okay.
The companies, when they put out offers, generally, let's say they have a budget for 100, they come out with 90, thinking, okay, let's see if they buy it at the 90. If it's 90, great. But if not, we have some extra room. Is that kind of, do you see that happens inside?
I do see that happen. I'll be honest, when I engage a candidate and present to my hiring manager, I have already talked numbers with them.
Yeah.
I'll get them where I think I can, right? Because I know what my range is, and I know what the hiring manager's tendencies will be by that point. But generally speaking, if they want to come back and renegotiate, I don't like it.
Yeah.
I'll do it if the manager is interested in the candidate. If they're not, obviously that's the end of the conversation, unfortunately.
Yeah. Do you ever get these where they come back and back and back?
Oh,
and the manager, people really like the person, so they don't want to give it up. But it's like, oh, this like little, it's like, just one more. We get just one more, and then you do it. Goes okay, one more, one more, and you're like, oh my god, you know.
I've had someone do that twice.
Mm-hmm.
But the second time it happened, the hiring manager like, no, done.
Yeah.
Don't care.
Yeah. Did you ever work with a place? Because I'll get these where they'll say, right, Jack, here's what we do. It's like, I think what was the car company with Saturn when they did no negotiations. That was their thing. That was your shtick. So like you didn't have to haggle. We'll say when we give an offer, that's it, and they meant it. You know what I mean? They'll give if it's 100, it's 100, and they'll be clear. This is what we're paying for it. That's what it is. No haggling, no negotiating. Boom. Which sometimes is much easier because this is what it is. There's no like, you know, Jack, come on. Are you sure you can't get 110, 20? And I'm like, yeah, I'll ask, but they're going to just yell at me because they tell me this is it. And that's their philosophy. That's what they do. And that's what they've done for the last 10 years. But otherwise, it's always because candidates always are wondering, God, did I just leave $5,000 on the table? Did I just leave 10,000 on the table? You know, they always feel like, ugh.
I'll tell you what, when I'm extending offers, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell them, listen, this is the number. This is, and and if I had to fight a little bit, I'll tell them, listen, I had to fight to get you this.
Mm-hmm.
If I didn't have to, I of course will omit that statement, you know. But I try to practice greater transparency when I have these conversations with folks. Because what I really don't want is I've had to have that fight with my hiring manager, and then the candidate asks me to go and have another fight.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because then I'll tell them, listen, getting this was not easy. Do you really want me to do this? You know, and if I know that there is room, I'm certainly happy for them to say yes, right? Or I will present, or if they make the mistake of asking for not enough money, I might bump them a little bit, you know, because what's going to happen if I don't do that? 6 months down the road, that person's going to get hit up by someone else,
and you're going to lose the person, and yeah, you're going to lose the person to a competitor,
and then I just got to backfill again.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Who needs that? I mean, that's not fair to the talent, and that's not fair to this manager, and it's not fair to me either, frankly.
Do you find this out too? Because I notice sometimes, and I try to be careful about this as well. So let's say someone is negotiating, and just to make the numbers, you know, easy, it's $100,000, and they're pushing for, you know, push, and that's like, let's say even more than the limit, and they knew right away, and they're getting more than you know they're going to, and they keep pushing. So, and sometimes I'll say to them, you know, you got to weigh it, because then if you like at a place like we just mentioned, or, you know, New York, New Jersey, San Francisco, LA, that's high taxed, after tax dollars, all right, what are you getting? And is it worth it? Because I've actually had hiring managers say to me, Jack, I'll pay Ed that 110, but I got to tell you, I'm going to expect a whole lot from him. Then the person goes into the relationship with now even a higher hurdle they have to go over, because it just sticks in the craw of the hiring manager a little bit. And I'm not saying it's right, wrong. It's just human nature. This happens. And then so you got to weigh sometimes, how much do I push? Because there's this, like, you always hear, just ask for it because they're going to lowball you, push. But sometimes you do it, and either they just don't, like, you know what? No one likes to be pushed around. So sometimes, like, forget it. Or, all right, Ed, I'll give you that. But now I'm thinking, all right, you're now like, you're going to have to do a whole lot. And then you put yourself in a position that it's going to be really uncomfortable.
Yeah. And, you know, I'll be honest, I haven't had that happen to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I will take that conversation out of the transactional model.
Yeah.
Say, if you want to keep doing this, you can keep, I can't stop you.
Mm-hmm.
But you have reached the point of diminishing returns.
Because people start souring internally. They're like, because you start getting the eye rolls. All right, what does Jack want now? What else is he asking for?
Yeah.
No green M&Ms in the bowl. All right.
Yeah. So, you know, I think it's worthwhile. I mean, look, the one thing I hate more than anything else is having my time wasted, right? It drives me berserk. Like, if it's a product of being a driver in New Jersey. right? um, like why can't people waiting at the traffic like load balance? Why are there like 5 cars in the one lane and just 1 car in the other lane? Why is that? I don't get it. It confuses me. If someone is going to play that game, when it starts happening, I tell them, listen, you have hit the point of diminishing returns. If you really want to push this, we can do that. But I'm telling you now, you may not. This might be a case of winning the battle and losing the war.
Yes. Yeah. And again, these are things people should know about, because then they can make a value decision, because they can listen to this and say, hey guys, I get it. I hear what you're saying, but I want X. I'm going to push for it. Fine. But at least they know this is the game. We're giving this inside scoop of here's how the game is played. And then they can make their own decisions. Is it going to be worth it me to push it? But knowing, so this is how people feel when it goes back and forth, that it could rub in the wrong way, but maybe they can give. Maybe they can give a little bit, like you mentioned. Maybe they didn't ask for enough. You could goose it up a little bit because you like the person, you want to keep the person, and if you don't, they can get a better offer somewhere else and leave. So this is what I like doing, because we've really given like a lot of inside scoop about what goes on, which I think is so helpful, because people it's like a big mystery for a lot of job seekers. It's like the Wizard of Oz. What's behind the curtain? Like what's really going on? And I think. And believe it or not, we've been talking for an hour. It just flew by. So at least we gave a glimpse of all right, here are the things you should know about. And a lot of times it's not right, wrong, and different. It just is what it is. It's like any game. Here are the rules. They may be fair, they may not be fair, but this is it. And then once you know it, then you kind of like, okay, I get it. I get now. I'm armed with more information.
Exactly.
And a better consumer as I'm looking for a job. Can I ask you just one last question though?
Of course.
Because I can't, it's like I'm looking, it's like over an hour. It just went so quickly. There's so much talk lately because there's so much unemployment that if you just keep sending applications and resumes, it's hard to get through, that you should find somebody who works at the company to kind of champion your cause, which makes perfect sense. But for an internal recruiter, HR, does that kind of become irksome because you feel people going around your back?
Ultimately, the job of all recruiters is to insulate the decision maker from the talent. That is part of our function.
Right.
We all
you're the
know.
wall, right? You're the wall.
We're the firewall, right? But the fact of the matter is, you and I both know that it doesn't take us very long to look at the resume real quick and make a yes/no decision. Right? We've been doing this for a certain amount of time. You can do it much faster than I can. But if someone is a non-traditional candidate for the position, they're probably better served by circumventing me or you. I've had several people who came in. I would never really have looked twice at the resume once I finally saw it and said, yeah, okay, yeah, this person makes sense. But they were selected. They moved through the process very effectively, and they are performing at a high level. So, the fact of the matter is, you and I are trained to read resumes, and we're trained to evaluate people, but usually within the context of that resume or sometimes a LinkedIn profile, right? And sometimes when we do that, we don't always have the fullest information to make that evaluation, So quite honestly, if someone really wants to get somewhere, they are probably better served by moving beyond, circumventing me.
Are they taking a risk though that they could invoke? Yeah. So it's just once again, like we talked about before, this is the game. So you could try to go around, and maybe the hiring manager looks and goes, "Oh my gosh, yeah," and find something that feels okay, even though traditionally you don't meet all the metrics. I got a feeling, let's bring them in. But you could also have it where, if that happens often, personally, like Ed, could feel like you keep going around my back.
Right.
This is not cool.
Yeah. And so, I should point out that the individual job seeker, and especially if he or she has a concern, like maybe they're a career reinventor, right? I mean, you and I both know recruiters are not going to look very carefully at career reinventors for the majority of recs. Unless the way it's written, yes, of course a career reinventor makes sense for this, right?
Yeah.
We're not going to, because what do we always reward? We will reward the last job or 3 that you did.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So it will make sense sometimes. But again, this is a high risk, high reward sort of maneuver, as you alluded to.
Yeah. That's great. You offered such insights, great advice. And has there been anything I didn't ask or that you'd like to share that?
We covered a lot of ground.
Right?
I'm really trying to think of anything, and I'm not coming up with
Okay, that's cool. Hey, I really appreciate it. Ed, seriously, this is like the hour flew by. That's amazing.
So did.
And, thank you very much, because I know it's not easy. For people watching now and watching, later on, it's not easy for someone who works for a company to talk as freely as Ed did. For me, it's a little easier because I run my own company, so
Right.
I can't fire myself. I guess I could, but that's weird. So I have a little bit more luxury, but also I got to be careful too, because I don't want to alienate job seekers. I don't want to alienate companies where they're like, Jack, you're a big jerk, and I lose business. So I got to temper it too, and so does Ed. But Ed has been really a very thoughtful, very fair, very open, very giving about like what really goes on behind the scenes. And I think for people who are watching it, really heed his advice, because this is what you're going through. And I think by watching it, and you might want to watch it a few times over and hear what he has to say again, because it's like, this is the real deal. This is what goes on behind the scenes. So it really illuminates, hey, this is why I'm running into this roadblock. This is why it's not working, or maybe this way it can work. So I really appreciate everything you've given, everything you've offered. I think it's going to be really so super helpful for people. I think it's going to open up their eyes to a lot of things. And then also, I think once their eyes are opened up, then they realize, oh my gosh, then there's probably other stuff too that I really didn't know. I got to kind of start looking at. And when they do that, that's just going to make them better at their job search, right? It's just going to make them, because now they have so much more information, so much more knowledge, so much more insight. It's going to make them more productive. So I thank you very much. I really agree. I think it was great. Really, so much great information. It's like, some people I feel might be a little too inside baseball, but you know what? This is what you need when you're looking to know this is the real deal. This is what's going on. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something and it helps you in your search. And now, Ed, for people who want to get in touch with you,
Sure.
but have the background, have the experience, would you like us to share when we edit it to put up on there where to get a hold of you, or how?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it through LinkedIn is the best way?
LinkedIn is going to be the best way.
Okay.
Quite honestly, honestly, the best way really is I post something at least once a day. Comment on it.
Okay. That's great. That's awesome. That's awesome. So that's another great thing about you, just being open and engaging with people. So I appreciate that. That's awesome. So thank you so much, Ed.
Thank you, Jeff.
All right, take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hope you enjoyed this episode of the WeCruiter podcast. If you want to check out other great content from WeCruiter, make sure to visit us at wecruiter.io. That's WECRUITR.io. We offer tons of great resources for job seekers and professionals, so make sure to check us out today.